Remember this scene? President Trump last month saying set it up to a reporter during a raucous news conference.
Well, it was set up today, and members of the Congressional Black Caucus met with President at the White House, and among them, a local Democratic U.S. Congresswoman, and Alex Michelson is here and talking with her live right now. Alex.
Colleen, today, Democratic Congresswoman Karen Bass of Culver City was among the members of the Congressional Black Caucus to meet with President Trump at the White House. She joins us live from Washington, D.C. Congresswoman, good to see you. What was the meeting like?
Thank you. Well, it was an interesting meeting. There were 6 of us there. We represented the leadership of the Congressional Black Caucus, and we were there to present information to him and also propose policy solutions. So we talked about several issues: transportation, infrastructure, criminal justice reform, entrepreneurship. So each of us did a brief presentation, and we left the president with a book of one, history of the African American population, because we think that he has a lot that he needs to learn, and also a variety of legislative solutions.
Several people that have met with the president say that he's very different behind closed doors than he is publicly. What did you make of him, and did you find areas of agreement?
Well, I think we did in a couple of areas. For example, in transportation and infrastructure, which of course is very important to our city. He was very excited and interested in the historically black colleges. He had met earlier with Elijah Cummings about the price of pharmaceuticals, and he seems to be open and understanding that people pay much too much for their medications. But the other thing that we were there to communicate to him too is that the way he has characterized and depicted the African American community is completely unacceptable. So, for example, he's painted inner city communities as though they were war zones. He said that Baghdad, in some instances, was safer. And we told him that that was really not constructive, and that, you know, he needed to change his tone. I talked to him about criminal justice reform and pushed the notion that we really needed to help people reintegrate back into communities, because if we don't, that just continues a cycle of violence. If people come out of prison and they are unable to work, then it's not really shocking that we have such a high recidivism rate in our country. We talked to him about the Voting Rights Act and the fact that under his administration, and he's only been in office 2 months, they have pulled the federal government out of a Voting Rights Act lawsuit, as well as rolling back on consent decrees. So we also talked to him about police-community relationships.
So how did he respond to your criticism?
Well, you know, I have to say in general, he was in a listening mode. I think a lot of the issues that we raised were unfamiliar to him, and so it wasn't like we were in the office having a in-depth policy discussion. So I think he was in a listening mode. He did have staff there. We know Omarosa, she's from Los Angeles. She was in the room, and so we told him that we wanted him and his staff to review our policy proposals, and we wanted to follow up with various members of his cabinet. So we will see what happens. You know, we viewed it as an opening. It was controversial, since many of us have been extremely critical of the president. But, you know, the president is the president, and he's going to be there for a while. And so we have to figure out, you know, is it going to be possible to work with him in what areas? But we don't do that in an uncritical fashion. Some of his rhetoric has been extremely harmful, and we told him that. And, you know, it puts us in an awkward position, because when people in our community hear that rhetoric, then they turn to us and wonder why we're even bothering to meet with him. But the Congressional Black Caucus represents over 70 million people in the United States, and frankly, it's our responsibility to have a relationship, if it is at all possible, with the administration.
And your colleague Maxine Waters said that she would not meet with him for that very reason. But let's talk about another one of your colleagues, Adam Schiff. He is in the news today.
Yes.
He says that he has doubts about the congressional investigation into President Trump and to Russia after Republican Intelligence Committee Chairman Nunes met with the president to talk about wiretapping. Do you share Congressman Schiff's concerns about the investigation?
Well, I absolutely share his concerns, but I would go a step further, because I think that Chairman Nunes needs to step down. I don't understand how he can continue to be the chairman of the Intelligence Committee. He needs to make a decision. Is he going to be a surrogate for the Trump administration, or does he want to work for the Trump administration? And if that's the case, then he needs to step down as chair, resign from the House of Representatives, and go pursue a job with the White House. So I don't see how it is possible to conduct an investigation inside inside of Congress. And I think that his actions today is just further reason why there needs to be an independent, bipartisan investigation of what went on between the Russian government, Russian operatives, the Trump administration, the Trump campaign, and I don't think it can happen any longer inside of Congress.
All right,
it should be
Congresswoman.
bipartisan, shouldn't be inside of Congress.
Congresswoman Karen Bass, thank you so much for sharing your views on what I'm sure is a very interesting day for you. Appreciate you joining us.